This book kept me up reading way past my bedtime, and I absolutely can't wait to tell you guys why. Hey there, book lovers. I'm here with my review of The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen. But first, let's check out what I've been reading this week. First up, we have Dark Skies by Danielle Jensen. Some of you might recognize this title if you caught my review of Dark Shores by this author. If you missed that one, you can catch it here, and I'll also put a link to that review in the description as well. But this one follows the story of Lydia, who flees for her life across the endless seas, where she strikes a bargain with Killian, who is a commander fighting to save his homeland from the armies of the Corruptor. This is book 2 in this author's Dark Shores series. It focuses on a different set of characters, but it's still set in the same timeline as the previous book in the series. I am really excited to jump back into this one because I really enjoyed that first book and the universe that this author set up in that one so well. So I will definitely have to let you guys know what I think and be on the lookout for my review of that one. The next book that I have for you guys is Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. This one is about Princess Odessa, who is unexpectedly chosen to wed a prince in order to seal a peace treaty, while her father secretly orders her to spy on the kingdom and uncover its secrets. This is book 1 in this author's Shield of Sparrows series. Book 2, Rights of the Starling, is set to release in April of this year. This is a romantasy that has been on my TBR for quite a while, and I just haven't, for whatever reason, just haven't really had a chance to get access to it. And found that it was on Kindle Unlimited and decided to take advantage of that. So I am really excited to get into this one, and we'll have to let you guys know what I think about it. The last book that I have for you guys this week is Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. This book follows the story of Matilda, a young goddess blessed with humble messenger magic, who falls in love with Vincent, a mortal who dreams of her, even though they've never met in person before. This is a prequel to this author's Letters of Enchantment series, which I absolutely loved and can't wait to get back into this universe again, because I really, really love the world that she created in that series. So I will definitely have to let you guys know what I think on this one. So definitely stay tuned for my review of this one. That's all I have for you guys as to what I'm reading this week. If you have read any of those or you're interested in reading any of those that I've mentioned, please feel free to let me know in the comments what you think, if you're excited for any of them, if you like them, if you dislike them, if you've read them, just feel free to let me know what your thoughts are. But otherwise, we can get right into my review of The Games Gods Play. Just to give you guys a heads up, there will be a segment in here where I talk about some spoilers. It will have a banner on there that says spoilers, just to kind of give you a heads up. But this is your warning if you don't want spoilers. Just to let you know, there will be some spoilers in there later on in the review. If you want to click away, if you want to avoid those spoilers. But yeah, otherwise, let's just dive right in. One thing I will say, before you even start the book, there is the first thing you get to is there is a page, that is just straight trigger warnings of, what to expect, as you read this book, what to expect as you're going through it. There's a warning that there's blood, gore, violence, amongst God, mortal, monster, everybody involved. There's just a whole list of things to be aware of in case that's something that might be a problem for you as a reader. And so I would caution everybody, because it is a lengthy list, that if anything on there is something that you are not comfortable reading, definitely, give this one a pass or proceed with caution, just because, the authors tend to not put trigger warnings up in their books without reason. And having read this book, I would say that it's definitely there for a reason. There's a lot of stuff in there that if if there's readers out there that aren't comfortable with, like, say, blood or gore or just violence in general or things like that could be a problem for some readers. So definitely want to make sure people are aware of all of that. The Games Gods Play was such an amazing book for me. I had such a really hard time putting it down. I was reading it just about every chance I could get, and as it would usually happen when I have a hard time putting a book down, the way life usually goes is when life kind of throws things at me that makes me have to put it down and just do regular life stuff that kind of got in the way. But every chance I got, I was reading this book. I was staying up well past my bedtime to keep reading as much as I could, because it was very, very hard to put down. So it is a story about a woman named Lyra. Now, I'm not sure on the pronunciation, because the way I read the book, when I was reading it, I pronounced her name Lyra. I did pick up the audiobook on occasion as well, when there were situations where I couldn't read the book, and the audio pronounces her name Lyra. So Lyra, however you prefer to pronounce it. I'm not sure what the correct pronunciation is. But she is a member of something called the Order of Thieves, who gets chosen to represent the god Hades in something called the Crucible, which is a competition that is held every 100 years to determine the next king or queen of the gods. It's something where in the world that this book is set in, the Greek gods exist and interact among mortals, and they choose mortals to fight in this competition on their behalf, because as a way to avoid fighting one another, and killing one another, or potentially ending the world or something like that. So it's kind of a way to use mortals to fight their battles, sort of deal. And Lyra gets selected to do this, and she is cursed from birth by Zeus to be unlovable, which means she's not able to be loved or cared about. So she grows up alone. She was abandoned by her parents when she was 3 to the Order of Thieves to pay off their debts, and really just doesn't really have a friend, and kind of gets selected against her will to fight in this competition. And Hades makes a deal with her that if she wins the competition for him, he'll remove her curse. So she's got a little bit of a incentive to win against the other champions. So the author does a really good job of sticking to the Greek mythology in this story, as far as like all the Greek gods and goddesses, like the stories of just how they are, were just very familiar. It reminded me very much of Percy Jackson in just the way that a lot of the mannerisms of the Greek gods and goddesses are. If you're not familiar with that series, that's another one that ties heavily into Greek mythology for its characters and its stories. And this one is another one that did a really good job with that in the writing. Hades was very familiar as like a loner sort of god, being like the king of the underworld. He's kind of apart from the rest of the pantheon of gods and goddesses. Aphrodite, the goddess of love, is very as you would expect her to be. And there's Zeus, there's Athena, there's Apollo, there's just all of these very familiar, if you have any sort of idea of, Greek mythology at all, and the stories in that, this will be a very familiar story for you because they're all very present in there. The Crucible itself is set up around the champions that are chosen are set to compete in 12 labors, which is in and of itself another Greek mythology like story, where each god and goddess set a labor for like their own trial of sorts for the champions to compete in, and the winner gets a special prize, like a relic of some sort to use in the coming challenges. The way to win the Crucible is either to have win the most labors, or you can be the last champion standing. So it's almost like there is a little bit of a Hunger Games sort of vibe to it too, because there are some champions in there who are in it to win as many labors and aren't really in it to try and, like, they're not out to kill their fellow champions, but at the same time there are ones that are in there to win it by any means necessary, and if that means they have to kill these complete and total strangers to do it, they are more than willing to do that, which is kind of scary. But it definitely reminded me a lot of the Hunger Games, with a bit of a Percy Jackson Greek mythology mix thrown in there. So I also really just enjoyed the character of Lyra, especially because she was a very well written character, and the way that she's this loner character, and she never, she didn't sign on. She didn't agree to be a part of the Crucible. She didn't choose this. She tried to fight it kicking and screaming. But she also didn't take that and funnel that into a way to survive by whatever means necessary. Like, she tries to survive every challenge that's thrown at her, but not at the expense of the other champions. Like, there are champions in there that are willing to survive and win by any means necessary. I mean, even if that means outright killing, one of the other champions. And she just refuses to do that. And she goes so far as to do what she can, even if it means sacrificing her advantage. She does what she can to help the other champions move forward. And, understandably, there are a lot of them in there that don't trust that she's just doing it to help them, because they think that, everybody is in it to win by any means necessary, and they don't really believe that she's not. But I think she just had such a very well written, well structured, like, sense of integrity, especially for someone who was, a loner. She doesn't have any friends because of the curse that she's, grown up with, and doesn't have anybody, doesn't feel like she's loved or cared about, but yet she cares about complete strangers to the point that she's not going to be out for just herself in something that would understandably be an understandable behavior and reaction for her. I just thought that was really, really a great thing to see as a character in the character's writing. That was just very enjoyable to read for me. So one of the things that was really interesting for me is that this was very much set up like it was going to be a Hades Persephone sort of story. And this will probably end up being something of a spoiler for people, so I do want to make people aware of that going in. But it does kind of feel like there's a setup between Hades and Lyra, and you think that it's going to be some sort of Hades Persephone sort of retelling or something. It is told very early on that Persephone has died, but which does clear the way for Hades and Lyra to have some sort of romantic connection, which is definitely the setup for the book. Like that is very clearly what is meant to happen in this story. Just based on the summary, and like as you continue reading, that is very clearly and obviously what is meant. But there is a bit of a twist that reveals that she's not, that what is told that happens to Persephone hasn't actually happened to her. But also, this one differs from previous Hades and Persephone stories that I've read, because the relationship between Hades and Persephone in this book is purely platonic. Like, it's referenced that he sees her more as a sister than a romantic entanglement. Like, it's a platonic love, not a romantic love sort of situation. And like I said, I won't spoil what the actual twist is as to what happens to Persephone, but you do find out that what is previously mentioned that happens to her doesn't actually happen, and that that's set up for the next book, obviously, because there is a book 2. But I found it really, really interesting that this was different from a lot of previous Hades and Persephone, because Hades and Persephone is a love story that has been done over and over and over. And so it was very interesting to me that this wasn't the usual Hades and Persephone story. Like, it's Hades and somebody else who is, because the Persephone in this story is not his love interest. Which was an interesting take. Like, I've not seen that before. So, really excited to see where that author takes that. Overall, I would give The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen 5 out of 5 stars. I could not put this book down. I was reading it every chance I could get that I had downtime. I absolutely loved the world that this author created. I loved how familiar it was with all the Greek mythology that I'm familiar with just from reading previous works, but also loved the different spin that she took on certain stories and certain characters that I just haven't seen before. And I love the different take that she took on certain things. And I'm very interested to see where she goes with a lot of it. The way she ended the book has me very excited to pick up book 2 and see where she decides to go with the rest of the series. I'm sure the same will definitely be said once I finish book 2, and then I will have to wait for book 3 because, of course, that's not out yet. I don't know why I keep doing this to myself. But if you are a Percy Jackson fan and you like Greek mythology, this might be a book you would want to pick up. And just be aware that be mindful there is that trigger warning in there in case there's anything in that list that might be a problem for you. Just be aware that there is that as well. But yeah, I would definitely recommend checking this one out. For those of you interested in finding out what's next on the channel, be sure to be on the lookout for my review of Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman. The more I kept hearing about this book, the more I knew I had to check it out, and I can't wait to share my thoughts with you guys on this one. This is about a man named Carl who, after an alien invasion, has to fight his way through the next level of a dungeon in a reality TV style post-apocalyptic TV show sort of setting, where there are millions of viewers, and it's a sort of post-apocalyptic survival type story show sort of situation, but it's really, really funny, and it's just got a lot of really funny moments that, like I said, I really can't wait to share my thoughts with you guys on this one. So definitely be sure to be on the lookout for that. But if you liked anything that you saw today, anything that I mentioned, if you've read any of the books that I mentioned today, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more content. See you guys next time, and happy reading!